Hey, welcome to the what?
Ooh, let's go a little bit of overtime. Trash talk with Bobby and Shine. Overtime.
Overtime.
Let's expound on some of the things that we talked about during the show that we didn't get a chance to kind of get to because we got our 5-minute limit, which
Yeah,
we try to stick to.
we don't.
74.99 for the pay-per-views now. Okay.
Expensive as fuck.
I'm gonna read you this out. Francis Ngannou, Cyril Gane, Brandon Moreno, Davidson Figueredo, Michelle Pereira, Andre Fio, I think, Greg Hardy, Alexei Olenek. Just say it's happening.
Scratched.
Just say it's happening.
I'm
Cody
sorry.
Stamann versus Saeed Nurmagomedov. Is that worth $74?
No, to me it's not. To me, it's not even worth
with the main event.
The money it was for.
Even with the main event.
Oh.
All right. UFC 271. Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker. Bobby Knuckles. He doesn't like that name, but it's okay. Kyler Phillips versus Marcelo Rojo.
Who?
That's the co-main event. Alex Perez versus Matthew Schnell.
Who?
I think it's Vink Pichel versus Mark Madsen.
Who?
Roxanne Modafferi versus Casey O'Neill.
Who?
Is that worth $74?
Man, I'm not going to disrespect the fighters that are on the main card right there, but if you got to turn your head or look them up to see exactly who they are and who they fought and understand by just the face that you know who the fighter is, not by just the name itself, then it's not worth $75 in my book, man. I don't feel like we should be paying a lot more money for fighters that you don't necessarily know off the top. You know what I'm saying? So if you say Conor McGregor, boom, well, I know what he looks like. I know who he fought in the past. I would pay money to see Conor fight. But you're putting all your money on the line for Adesanya. That's basically what you're doing.
Okay. One more that we got announced, and then I got one more question for you once I get done with this. All right, it's only 2 fights announced, but it's okay. UFC 272. The question is it worth $74? Kobe Covington versus Jorge Masvidal.
Yes.
Jessica I versus Manon Fawat. I'm not sure. Is that worth $74?
As of right now, because of the beef, I would say yes, but they're gonna have to build something on top of that, man. Because you can't just build that off of just Jorge and Kobe Covington.
Right. So what I'm saying though is this is 100% no disrespect to the fighters on the card. We're simply talking about the money that they're asking us to spend to pay for this card and what we are getting for this extra amount that we now have to pay. Because not even, 2 weeks ago, before the announcement was made, it was $5 cheaper or $7. I don't know how much it went up. But now you're giving me this, and then you're telling me that it costs more. All right? Case in point, I understand that hindsight is 20/20. We didn't know that at the time, but listen to this. The question is, would you pay $80? All right. Main event, John Fitch versus Paulo Thiago. Co-main, Brock Lesnar versus Frank Mir. Welterweight bout, GSP versus Thiago Alves. Middleweight bout, Dan Henderson versus Michael Bisping. Middleweight bout, Akiyama versus Alan Belcher. That's the main card. Prelims, Mark Coleman versus Stephen Barner. Jim Miller versus Mac Danzig. John Jones versus Jake O'Brien.
In the prelims?
In the prelims. Daniel Kim versus TJ Grant. Ruthless Tom Lawler versus CB Dollaway. Bro.
No, knowing what I know now, yes, I would pay that. And you understand not only are they going up on pay-per-view, but they also going up on ESPN Plus as well.
Oh, didn't know that.
So the prelims itself will cost more too. So not only are you paying more for the main card, which is on pay-per-view, but you're also paying more for the prelims too as well. So just naming that out, I will also spend the money on the ESPN Plus, which is like $5.99, which I think is going up to $7.99 per month. Don't quote me on that because I don't need nobody writing in the comment section telling me I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I just said don't quote me on that. But you're also paying a little bit extra, not only for the pay per view, but also for the prelims. And by knowing what I know now, knowing some of the individuals that you just spoke of in that card right there, and knowing their career now from what it was in that retrospect, I would pay $80 for that main card and the extra money for that prelim as well. So if
Now,
the UFC can bring some of that right there to 2022, then I can see why people would pay $80 for a main card like that.
now think about it like this though. Think about it like this. Now, I'm not mad. Not mad at all. But think about this whole aspect right here. All right, you got John Fitch fighting, Brock Lesnar fight, GSP fight. But once you get down to the lower parts, it goes, these are the people that we're building, and we're giving them the platform of this event that we're charging you extra on top of the extra that we charge.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we end up with like John Jones on the prelims, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's fast forward all the way to the fights that we have, today, and I want, like, what are we building? What are we trying to put together? Like, what's the story? What are we trying to do? You have your prelim cards, you have all this, and I understand that they just need to have so many shows. There was less shows back then, but we need to reserve these cards that we're going to charge us extra for, right? You're charging us extra. Reserve this for, like, bruh, you main card, all this, prelims, the people's main event on the prelims, you got Sean O'Malley. This fight happened now. I might be a little more into it. You got all these guys, Paddy Pimblett versus Gatekeeper now. What's his name? Donald Cerrone. That's up here. You've got all this, put all of that into one, and then be like $80. And I'm like, okay, cool. I got a lot of storylines.
I can see that.
I got a lot of storylines that I can look at.
That brings me to another question on your end too, and I brought this up a little bit earlier in the Charles Talk Countdown show before we got into overtime. Do you feel like there should be a tier, like tier 1, tier 2 kind of payment?
No,
but they do it. But the reason why I ask that is because they do it in boxing. So like you pay more for a Mayweather fight than you do for a let's just say you pay more for a Mayweather and a Tyson Fury fight than you pay for a middle of the road fight. Somebody who has maybe 20-0 but hasn't got the credentials of a top tier boxing, but they still got a championship. So you might pay $69.99 for that pay per view compared to a $99.99 pay per view for a Mayweather fight.
I would not do that. Now, in looking at this, at the beginning of 2020, the prices were raised also, just to put that out there.
Yeah, they've been raised for the last 3 years.
What I wanted to say, it was tiered since then too. I was gonna say like a McGregor fight costed more, but I'm not exactly sure, so I'm not gonna quote unquote on it. So, but when you say a tiered type thing, that means you then have to figure out, like, are you judging it by the main event? Are you judging it by the card as a whole? Are you like what's the judge as to why this pay-per-view is going to cost me $39, this pay-per-view $59, and this pay-per-view $79,
Well, I let me talk about some of the cards we just announced. So I would think like a Jorge Masvidal and Colby Covington fight will be like a tier 2, tier 3 fight. The reason why I said that is both individuals coming off a loss.
Okay.
They're not actually fighting for the opportunity to be the next one for the championship per se,
Okay.
because both of them lost to the champion in their previous fights. So I would think that they're one fight away from being announced a championship fight.
Okay. All right. So
That's
my question to you.
if the next opponent is like the number 1 and number 2 or whatever.
Okay. My question to you is, whether the card gets stacked out or not, we call that tier 2.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly fine. All right. And it's no title fight. Okay. But you're telling me that you're going to put Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker as a tier 2 pay-per-view event?
I would say it'd be a tier 1 because it's a championship.
Right, but we said we didn't want to watch this card because we read the rest of the card off.
I know, but tiers per se, you have to have some kind of meaning behind it.
Yeah.
You could say it's a championship fight. Actually, let's put it like this: tier 1, tier 2. I feel like the Cyril Gane and Moreno versus Figueiredo should be a tier 1 because you got 2 championship fights on the card itself. I feel like if you have 1 championship fight on the card, then it should be a tier 2. If you don't have any championship fights on the card, it should be a tier 3, and it should go from $74.99, $64.99 to $54.99. That's just I just throwing out there because
you know what they would do with that, right?
Not what do they do?
They gonna make more pay-per-view events to charge more. Instead of fight nights, they're gonna start making them pay-per-view events.
They need to do something because
so I don't know.
You paying $75 for a fight card that you might not know 2-3 other fights. So you sitting there watching like, hey, I hope they do well so I can understand who this fighter is, so I can be like, wow, to the point where I go online and actually do my research to see exactly who he is and what they did and this, that, and the other. Yeah. So you're hoping for excitement, but you know when you get let's just say Francis Ngannou fight, you know it's going to be some fireworks.
You know what's at stake too.
You know what's at stake.
Yeah.
And you know when you get a Conor McGregor, you know you're going to get fireworks. Even if he loses, you're going to get fireworks. He going to do or say something that's going to make you more intrigued to watch him the next time.
I'll tell you what. Derek Lewis versus Tai Tuivasa. What tier is that?
I feel like in my heart it's a tier 1.
See, it's hard though.
But
that's a tier 3 fight.
That's a tier 3 fight. In my heart, it's a tier 1. In retrospect, it's a tier 3 fight because it's 2 fighters not fighting for the opportunity to be the next champion. They're 1 fight or 2 fights away from being issued an opportunity to be a champion. So I feel like that's a tier 3. So if I can make rules for a tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 fight, the opportunity for the UFC is they have an opportunity to make some of these fight nights into pay-per-views, but it'll be on a lower level, and then they can advertise it as a fight night perspective.
Yeah, and then they would have to tell us that their product, some of their product isn't as good as others, and I don't think they're going to admit that. You got anything else for us tonight?